Welcome to Smack's Garage. Today we're going to be lowering the front end of our 1969 Mustang. Looking at my 1969 Mustang here, there's a big fender gap here where I can fit my entire fist. So what I've bought is I bought 1-inch lowering springs for the car, where I'm going to be installing them in this video, and we're going to be dropping the car. We're going to see how much it actually drops down. We can take some quick measurements now to take a look at what the overall height is. So right now we're about 26 3/4 from the ground to the bottom of the front fender. When we look at from the fender to the tire, 2.5 inches. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get installing these front springs, and we're going to go through it step by step. The first thing we need to do is take off the strut. These need to come out so I can pull the strut out. One of the things I like to do first is mark off the location of this using tape, so that I have a starting point of when I put it back together. We're going to get the tires off, so we're going to go ahead, get them loose, get the car ready to jack up. All right, so the next part we're going to take off the lower part of the strut. So there's going to be 2 nuts here, one on either side. All right, so here's the tool we're going to use. The nut end or the bolt end here goes at the bottom. This side typically drops in from the top, but what I found out is it doesn't actually fit from the top on the 69 Mustang. The hole isn't big enough. So I'm gonna have to actually take one of these off and then slide it up and in, and the same thing here. So I'm gonna be assembling inside the spring itself. Here it is, I've taken off either side, and I'm gonna tighten up these two. I'm gonna drop it in from above, just like this. To do the top, it's the same thing. Gonna put this one in, down some. So my goal is to get it as centered as possible and lined up as possible. So you can see in there, I have this really well centered as best that I can inside of the hole inside of the spring here. So checking that's tight. And just for the life of this, you always put lubricant on the threads. All right, now that that's loose, I'm gonna unscrew it and relieve all the pressure. It's good to keep all the threads lubricated as you do this. It's like 11.5, call it 11 inches tall. All right, since we're reusing this, we're gonna have to take this off and put on the new spring. All right, so we got the lowering spring here. We're gonna take off. A little concerned they're about the same height. Maybe this one's a different rate than this one. That'll make it easier to go down, but we'll check it out as we put it in. So now we gotta take off this here and put it in the new spring. So, here we go. Now let's struggle to go ahead and get the spring in. Up. Over. Cool. All right, as you're loosening, you want to make sure that this stays centered and that the spacer doesn't get caught up while you're loosening the spring, so that it's sitting in the right place. Feels like we are good. The springs are installed, car's on the ground. It's sitting about a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch higher than it was before. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go drive it around and I'm gonna update at the bottom of this video. I'll put it in the comments and I'll pin it around kind of where I end up after test driving it and making sure that everything settles in the correct spots. If it doesn't go down, gonna end up cutting the springs. We'll start a 1/4 at a time and see how much we can lower the front end. What might have happened is, since I have an aluminum intake, I have aluminum heads, a lot of other lightweight parts on the front end of this car, even though they're claimed for 1-inch drop, the springs, you know, I took off hundreds of pounds of weight in the front, so it might not drop. It's a common problem to have, but what we're gonna do here is we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna go start driving it, get it to settle in. So thanks for tuning in today on Smacky's Garage.